Welcome to the Empathic Edge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empathic Edge with Megan Smith, founder of Empathic Edge. Megan is an attorney, negotiation professor, and dispute resolution professional focused on the future of human communication skills in an AI-driven world. Through negotiation strategy, emotional intelligence, and high-stakes conversation training, she helps professionals build confidence and perform more effectively under pressure. My name's Sean O'Connor, and today, Megan and I are talking about AI and the future of human communication skills, because who is it, right? Megan, good to see you.
You too.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And before we get into the AI and communication, what about a little bit of background on you and how you came to create Empathic Edge?
Sure. Thanks so much, Sean. So I am an attorney, but I'm also a coach and adjunct professor at the University of Houston Law Center. So I've been teaching law students for about a decade now, and primarily in negotiation strategy. So I focus on interest-based negotiation, and I work a lot with these law students, and also workshops, different professionals, but mostly law students over the years on learning how to become more empathic or empathetic in their communications, how to focus on interests. So, like the why behind why they or their client might really want or need something. And then also work on, preparing and practicing for it. So in addition to that, I'm also a mediator, but I'm also, most importantly for today, the founder of Empathic Edge, which I came up with the idea a number of years ago through actually coaching my law students.
Hmm. That's super interesting, and I know we're just getting started on the pod, and I know we'll get into a lot of different uh, wrinkles of it all. But with the AI, every attorney I'm talking to, even attorney, of course, as attorneys focusing on helping attorneys manage AI in a legal way and all that. So, uh, but then behind every contract are people, and how to communicate it with them, and it's super fascinating. I love that you're doing this. So I'm excited.
Thanks so much.
It almost goes without saying, AI is changing how people write, research, prepare for conversations, send nice messages to their mother. It's like shifts, what shifts are you already seeing in the way professionals communicate and negotiate?
Well, I know I hear about it, obviously with my law students, with lawyers, especially, and then also even in my mediation practice. So I know with my own firm, I'm looking into, different AI research and writing tools that we can use. But then Claude obviously had a big announcement yesterday, which now I want to look into Claude Legal as well. Um, so even figuring out really the ways to create automations and to improve efficiency in our own firm. With my law students, I have also vibe coded an app that's sort of supplemental to Empathic Edge to help my client counseling and interviewing class. So my students, they're even using it to practice with a role play. So they're really interviewing the LLM as kind of their opponent as their client. And then in our negotiations classes, we're using it to practice. So they get repeatable role play practice with the AI or with the LLM, and they get immediate feedback. So that's one way that I've really been talking to our students and to other lawyers about using AI. It's not about replacing humans.
Yeah.
It's really, I think that we can use this tool to help us become more empathetic and focus more on the human interaction by hopefully giving us the tools that we need and the practice that's really necessary.
That sounds great. Um, almost AI aside, for just a moment, I mean, a lot of technically skilled people still, I mean, any human can struggle, right, in high pressure conversations. What changes, once emotion, conflict, uncertainty, all things that come up in a legal context for sure. What happens when those things enter the room?
Well, so I think your limbic system is really kicking in and it's sort of, fight or flight. And so you're having these neurological changes as well. So it's both, it's physical, physiological, and emotional. And what happens a lot of the time is people tend to become defensive, especially if they feel as though their core values are being questioned or attacked, or even their competency. And so that's really what we see. That's what I even struggle with, with my clients, especially because now my clients are using AI. And so they come to us and say, well, have you thought of XYZ? And I'm like, you got that from ChatGPT, didn't you? So you have to kind of take a step back also and say, okay, let me check my ego and, make certain that I'm responding with kindness. Always. But yeah, I think that's really what happens is people just get backed into a corner. And if you don't have the right tools and really kind of that repetition, that practice beforehand, you tend to kind of revert to, whatever your natural state is. Most of us actually have one or two primary conflict modes.
Oh,
So, for instance, you may be somewhat like combative or you may be accommodating. And so, if you're backed into a corner in a negotiation, for an example, I would tend to probably revert to being more collaborative, which is helpful and it sounds good, but they all have their strengths and they all have their room for improvement.
yeah, 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 yeah. You get too accommodating in a negotiation and you don't get what you want. But at the same time, often it's not a zero sum game, and that people get locked into that idea sometimes too. I know you've described negotiation and communication as performance skills rather than soft skills. What's the difference between those two ideas?
Well, I think I'm really just wanting people to think of it in this way. We need to be able to practice beforehand. So if you were to go and give a presentation on stage, really the best tool that you have is, of course, to prepare beforehand, but you want to practice it. And so these are skills that are really necessary for attorneys in particular, but I think, most all people. But attorneys are also counselors at law. And so a lot of our job really is making certain that our clients feel heard, that we're understanding the situation, and then we're better able to find solutions for them.
The AI tools, and you described how you're using them, right? They can simulate conversations, they can generate responses, and help people prepare for negotiations. You're talking about the role playing that you're doing with your students. Which parts of communication training do you think technology can genuinely improve?
I think, primarily we can see how to reframe things. So I may go into a conversation pretty hot and bothered. And I think that our tool in particular would be able to help you see that, hey, that's just not going to work for me, would be very different than a reframe of, why don't you let me know what's most important about that to you? Or, why does that feel so necessary? Or why is your client prioritizing it? It really helps provide sort of like a before and after, which I think can help people kind of understand, okay, this isn't something that I should automatically know. I shouldn't always know how to communicate the best in all situations. There are, skills that I can acquire that will help me reframe better.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think some people talk about, like some of the general culture, soft skills versus hard skills. And I think there's almost an implication that soft skills aren't as important or that they are somehow innate and you have them or you don't. And what I'm hearing is that, they can be, you can level up your soft skills.
Absolutely. Well, I know something I tell my husband all the time is, we got married a little bit later in life to each other, and he's in leadership, and I've been coaching and teaching dispute resolution for almost a decade now. And I wasn't the same communicator that I am now 10 years ago, and especially not 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
so I have tools now, right? There are things you learn even like in relationships, like with your spouse. Okay, I'm not going to just blame you. It's not, you're not doing this. It's what can we do, right? To help make this better. But just skills that I didn't have back then. And now a lot of it is more instinctive, which is great, but that's because it's years of practice and repetition.
Yeah, yeah, you've got the kind of like some like muscle memory almost. It's coming easy, but it's taken 15 years to get it in your system like that. That's great. Can you share an example, of a conversation or a negotiation where preparation and emotional awareness completely change the outcome? Maybe it was with your husband, maybe it, was in the courtroom. Who knows?
Yeah, I would say, often with conversations with clients. I even had a conversation this week with a client, and I went into it beforehand. I knew I needed to prepare, because we were kind of inundated with lots of documents, lots of questions, lots of concerns. And so my immediate reaction, of course, when my limbic system is kicking in, is they're questioning my competence. Why don't they trust that this is what we need? This is what we've said. And, there's a reason for it. And I had to kind of reset and prepare for that conversation, saying, okay, I want to go in asking some open ended questions. I want to make certain that I'm summarizing what I'm hearing to make certain that I really understand, let's say, the timeline, or even the emotions, address, any miscommunication or misunderstandings, and then kind of talk about the plan at the end. Versus before going into it, my thought was, well, I want to tell the client this is why we do it this way, right? Versus, hey, let's talk about what's most concerning to you. Let's talk about, not overly general everything, right? That that would open a can of worms. But let's, talk about the timeline. Walk me through this. And I think if you're coming from a place of genuine curiosity, that just completely changes the conversation.
Yeah, I was just in the trying not to be thinking about questions while you're answering my questions, but also I was like, it is interesting when there's a developing just a degree of self-awareness. Okay, I'm going into this client conference and they're my clients. So it shouldn't be combative. When you want to appear competent, you want to appear as though you've taken their best interests to heart, and you develop a strategy, and you're confident, and they're paying you, and you're like, hey, I figured it out. But then there's still the like, okay, I feel I'm pushing or I'm overcompensating, and then just to ask, like, where is that coming from? Why am I reacting in a certain way, just to myself? But then to be able to ask more questions in the room with the client completely changes the dynamic. Like having to come in with all the answers versus, you have answers, but also like, what's important? Why do what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And even myself 10 years ago, I had to just push through.
Right, right. And you would have a plan. Okay, this is what I need to talk about. So that's one thing I talk to my students about a lot is if you're thinking about your next great, brilliant question or comment, you're not actively listening.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure not. Hey, with the few minutes we have left, let's like look into the future a little bit. What human abilities do you think will become harder to replace as AI becomes more capable? Because we're only at the very beginning of this uh, revolution, I suppose you could say.
True. I think my biggest concern and the thing that I really don't want us to have replaced, but I feel like it's just very easy for it to happen, is our writing and our creativity. It's really easy to put in a prompt to Claude and say, "Hey, I need, a client letter that, just generally says XYZ," versus really putting that thought that goes into it. And that's not as creative or fun as a concept, I guess, a client letter, but I mean, really anything. Um, of course, we worry about it, from an educational institution standpoint, because we don't want students only, creating content via an LLM. And we know now, obviously, from, the research that's been done, is that they're also not going to retain that information.
Yeah.
So I hope that we see kind of this new wave and creativity. I almost see that happening where I could see people saying, no, I'm going to use it to be creative, but I'm going to use it again to just really empower myself and give myself that skill.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, in my own experience, of course, I'm using AI here and there, and I have tried to use it very much in that, especially for what I think of as high value tasks. Uh, I have in conversation, so to speak, with the LLM. Things have been surfaced like, oh, I didn't think of that. You're like, oh, I forgot. I should include that in my summary. You know what I mean? And then I go and include uh, a section. that I would have left out. Uh, but it is. I was reading somewhere that there's a certain echo chamber that's happening in terms of, or potentially, right, where you're consuming like for instance, social media. You're consuming potentially a bunch of AI generated stuff, and
Mhm.
let's say words and phrases, and then you, as a young impressionable person who maybe hasn't been educated and developed their own writing style, you begin to mimic that. Or it's like, oh, it's like, as they say, if you want to be a good writer, you need to read. Well, if you're only reading things that have been generated by AI, the theory is you're only going to be writing the way AI does, but then also the way AI writes will continue to evolve as well, one would think. So I know it's super interesting. I don't have a
Absolutely.
point there.
I love it. That's why I like reading fiction, because I'm in my left brain, I think so much that they say that by reading fiction, it just activates like a different part of your brain. Definitely right brain, but still. So I listen to nonfiction on like Audible or podcasts.
Great.
I actually read fiction.
Yeah. I only listen to legal podcasts in my free time. Listen, obviously, I'm kidding. Megan, we're out of time, but it's been great talking to you. And I hope we have many, many uh, engaging conversations in the future.
Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate it.
That's it for the inaugural episode of The Empathic Edge. If you'd like to learn more about Megan Smith, Empathic Edge, and the work they're doing around negotiation, communication, and AI powered practice training, visit the website empathicedge.com. Thanks for listening. Please leave us some thumbs up, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, maybe share a link with someone in your world who's interested in these topics. I'm Sean O'Connor. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.